There is a plant that seems to have made itself a promise, never to wilt. Small yellow flowers continue to keep their color even after they are picked and left to dry. Perhaps this is exactly why, thousands of years ago, the ancient Greeks associated the plant with gold, the sun, the gods, and even the glory of men. The name is Helichrysum, in English. The plant is known as Helichrysum. And today we are mainly talking about Helichrysum italicum, the Italian Helichrysum. But why is the plant called Helichrysum, and above all, how did such a small plant come down to us carrying a story that stretches across ancient Greece, Rome, and the Mediterranean? Stay with me, because at the end of the video we will also look at a truly remarkable archaeological artifact, an ancient funerary wreath made with everlasting flowers. Let us start with the name. Helichrysum comes from ancient Greek and is generally traced back to two words, helios, meaning sun, and chrysos, meaning gold. Sun and gold. A name that almost sounds like a poetic description of the plant. The flowers are a bright yellow and, most importantly, they have a remarkable characteristic. Once dried, they can preserve their appearance for a very long time. This is also where some of the common names come from, such as immortel, everlasting, and in Italian, semprevivo or perpetuo. The specific name Italicum simply means Italian, referring to Italy. And here we already have a small curiosity. When we say Helichrysum, we are not necessarily talking about a single species. The genus Helichrysum includes numerous species found in different parts of the world. The species that interests us today is Helichrysum italicum, a typical Mediterranean plant that is particularly widespread in central and southern Italy and on the islands. This is a plant that loves the sun, poor soil, dry ground, and rocky places. In other words, perfect conditions are not required. The plant grows where many other plants would struggle, and here the story becomes even more fascinating. Helichrysum appears in the botanical literature of antiquity. One of the earliest authors to mention the plant was Theophrastus, the great Greek botanist who lived between the 4th and 3rd centuries BC. In his work Historia Plantarum, Theophrastus mentions a plant called Heliochrysos. According to ancient sources, this plant was also used to prepare crowns and garlands. And there is a particularly interesting detail, according to a tradition reported by Athenaeus. And now we come to the artifact that makes this story even more tangible. The British Museum preserves a funerary wreath from Hawara, in Egypt, dating from the Roman period, between the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. This is not a reconstruction. This is a genuine archaeological artifact, and the surprising detail is the material used to make the wreath, flowers of Helichrysum stoechas, a species of everlasting flower. The wreath came from a tomb. Imagine a person who lived almost 2,000 years ago, accompanied on their final journey by a wreath made from small flowers that could preserve their color even after drying. The symbolism is difficult to miss. A flower that seems unwilling to die becomes a perfect companion for someone in death. However, we cannot say that this particular wreath was made with Helichrysum italicum. The museum identifies the species as Helichrysum stoechas. This distinction is important, but the historical fact remains extraordinary that a species of Helichrysum has genuinely reached us through an ancient Roman funerary context. This allows us to understand how important the Helichrysum family was in the ancient Mediterranean culture. Helichrysum was not only a plant used for crowns and ceremonies. Another important figure was Pedanius Dioscorides, a Greek physician and pharmacologist who lived in the 1st century AD. In his famous work De Materia Medica, Dioscorides describes a plant called Helichrysum and records several traditional medicinal uses. Preparations in those days were very different from modern preparations. People used decoctions, macerations, and preparations made with wine or honey. Among the uses reported by ancient sources were urinary disorders and other problems that, naturally, we cannot automatically interpret according to modern medicine. Pliny the Elder also mentions Helichrysum in his Naturalis Historia. This shows us something important. The plant passed through Greek culture and then Roman culture, moving from the religious and ornamental world into traditional medicine. Here we need to make a small distinction for anyone interested in herbs. When we read that ancient people used Helichrysum, we should not automatically imagine that they had exactly the same species that today we call Helichrysum italicum. modern botanical classification is much more precise. Ancient authors described plants according to appearance, habitat, and uses. For this reason, modern scholars are cautious when associating every ancient description with a particular modern species. But one thing is certain: the genus Helichrysum has been part of the botanical and medicinal history of the Mediterranean for a very long time. Here's in the story. Santini was a local physician in Tuscany. During the 1940s and 1950s, he studied Helichrysum and investigated its possible therapeutic applications. His research is considered among the early modern studies into the medicinal properties of Italian Helichrysum. Santini is an interesting figure because he represents a transition between two worlds. On one side was popular knowledge, passed down through generations. On the other side was the attempt of modern medicine to scientifically investigate that knowledge. Today we know that Helichrysum contains numerous bioactive compounds, including flavonoids, terpenes, and other components of the essential oil. Experimental studies have mainly shown antioxidant, antimicrobial, and anti-inflammatory activity. However, many of the therapeutic properties traditionally attributed to the plant still require stronger clinical evidence in humans. And this is exactly where caution is needed. Saying that a plant contains interesting substances is one thing. Claiming that a plant can treat a particular disease is something completely different. Helichrysum italicum is a Mediterranean plant. In Italy, the species is particularly common in the central and southern regions and on the islands, where the plant finds an ideal environment. The plant loves warm, sunny, rocky places and poor soil. Helichrysum can be found in Mediterranean scrub, garriga, and coastal environments. The plant is also present in other parts of the Mediterranean, from the Iberian Peninsula to the Balkans and Anatolia, with different populations and subspecies. Perhaps this environment explains part of the plant's character. Strong sunlight, very little water, poor soil, and despite everything, Helichrysum grows, with silvery leaves and small golden flowers. Now we come to the properties of the plant. Traditionally, Helichrysum has mainly been used in preparations connected with the respiratory system, digestion, and the skin. Modern research has focused especially on flavonoids and terpene compounds, together with the essential oil. Antioxidant, antimicrobial, and anti-inflammatory activities have been observed, especially in laboratory studies. But this needs to be emphasized once again. These results do not automatically mean that Helichrysum is a cure. Scientific research in humans is still much more limited than the large number of traditional uses passed down through the Mediterranean. And this difference between tradition and science is one of the most interesting things to understand when we talk about herbs. So why Helichrysum? Because the ancient Greeks saw something special in those small golden flowers. Helios, the sun. Chrysos, gold. A name born thousands of years ago that still seems perfectly suited to this plant. But perhaps the real secret is not only the color. The real secret is the ability to remain. To remain on the plant. To remain in memory. To remain in funerary wreaths. To remain in the writings of Theophrastus, Dioscorides, and Pliny. And to reach the present day. From the crowns of the ancient world to modern research. From the Mediterranean coast to our gardens. Helichrysum is a small plant, but the plant carries an enormous story. And perhaps, after almost 2,000 years, we can still understand why the ancient world considered Helichrysum a flower worthy of the gods. This was Helichrysum. If you enjoy the hidden stories behind plants, continue following the channel. Because behind every herb, there could be a story that has been waiting for centuries to be told.